God, not quite, but it's very important. You got the Ten Commandments in there, and remembrance of their time in Egypt, and their deliverance out of there, and the exodus out of Egypt. But God is wanting to instill in them what? A reverence for Him, a respect for Him. Okay, so and these craftsmen that built these items were very talented. Very talented. Okay. Yep.
It's interesting that they couldn't touch the ark later, but here's a man building it, and he's got it finished, and there was a time when it could be touched, and then it became a time when it couldn't be touched. Mm-hmm. So the question presents itself is, when did it change?
Yep. Or when did he say it couldn't be touched? Yeah, obviously when you're building, it's got to be touched. Okay, somebody's got to put it in there. One person isn't going to carry that thing. Somebody's got to put it in there. Somebody's got to put the items in. Okay. We may get some indication more of who that was later, but I think what we'll probably find here is once they get to the point when they're getting ready to start moving locations, is when some of these things are going to be implemented. Yep, but it's a good question. Good question. And there's a lot of things coming up that's going to be a change for people. Okay, a lot of rules, regulations are going to come up, and when they can do things, when they can't do things. And it's going to be a learning process, but it's a process that they have to learn because why? It's learning up to their obedience, isn't it? God's doing all these things for the respect that they need to give to God and what they need to do. The preparation they make for a Sabbath. Okay, we've seen that in movies all over, and we understand that. My wife and I were in the musical in theater. Community theater back in Michigan, and we did Fiddler on the Roof. And so we actually had a Jewish, we had a Jewish, I want to say counselor, but a consultant that was there with us, explaining things to those people that didn't know, about their procedures and what they're doing. So you learned a little bit more respect right from somebody who actually practices it. And the idea of preparing for the Sabbath, how they had to get everything done and prepared ahead of time before that sundown, And, you think of what we do to get ready for Sunday morning worship, okay? And it used to be pretty common that, people would dress up even more for Sunday morning. Okay, we're a little more casual, maybe because of the climate down here, but people would have the respect. And I was brought up kind of the idea, and when I question, why do we have to do that, But when you go someplace special, like if somebody's funeral, you usually dress up a little bit, So why don't you try to put on, they talk about what? The Sunday best. Why is it the Sunday best? Because as we'll see here, God expected us to give Him our best. So it kind of shows us some of our own how important it seems to us, as a more of a tradition in this case. Okay, but how much do we prepare for it? Do we write our checks enough ahead of time, or is it kind of a last minute thing? I've seen people writing their check right out there in their seat, before the contribution goes around. So they didn't plan too fast ahead of time or forgot to write it then. But just it kind of goes all in of how important the day is to us, how much we want to prepare. I grew up. All of our clothes that we were going to wear on Sunday morning had to be ready Saturday night. And that was probably because my mom didn't want to scramble around on Sunday morning getting everybody ready, But it did teach us a little bit of respect for getting ready for Sunday morning. Yep.
What's interesting about the temple in Jerusalem?
In the temple in Jerusalem, there's interesting when you approach it, the steps are staggered. One step will be 1 foot wide, the next step is 2 feet wide, next step is 4 feet wide, next step is 3 feet wide, And God had them design it so that people wouldn't run into the temple and not be prepared. You had to prepare yourself by singing the ascension songs from Psalm and sing on your way up the steps and watch where you're stepping. And he was always concerned about the way people approached the temple and when they were coming to worship him, that their minds were on task. And that's why he staggered the steps. So that's why he had them sing different psalm from the psalm that David crafted.
And God had a way of what? Helping us out on our remembrance. You know, we talk about this with the Lord's table. The idea that it's a remembrance. We're very forgetful people. And, you know, a lot of people in the Christian faith don't partake every Sunday morning. Well, it can get kind of boring. Well, if remembering Christ and the sacrifice that he made for us that gives us everything that we have gets to be boring, then there needs to be a little attitude adjustment someplace, doesn't there? I think that's part of it right there. Okay, our next item here is the table. Chapter 10, or verse 10 through 16. We're still in 37. There's Scott in the back there.
Oh, that guy.
The other back.
Good or bad, Scott?
They made the table of acacia wood 2 cubits long, a cubit wide, and a cubit and a half high. Then they overlaid it with pure gold and made gold molding around it. They also made around it a rim hand breadth wide and put a gold molding on the rim. They cast 4 gold rings for the table and fastened them to the 4 corners where the 4 legs were. The rings were put close to the rim to hold the poles used in carrying the table. The poles for carrying the table were made of acacia wood and were overlaid with gold. And they made from pure gold the articles for the table, its plates and dishes and bowls, and its pitchers for pouring out the drink offerings.
Okay. So what was on the table? What other name was this table given? Table of bread. Yeah, bread was on the table. Was there another name? I'm thinking of show table. Does that sound familiar? Table of showbread. Okay. So what is the showbread? What is it?
I think there were 12 loaves, weren't there?
12 loaves of what kind of bread? Unleavened bread. And what do those 12 loaves represent? 12 tribes. Okay. So as a remembrance, a situation there. Something struck you funny there, David?
No, my wife struck me.
Oh, she's the comedian. Okay. Yeah.
It showed the bread.
It showed the bread. Hey, ask a simple question, you get a simple answer, right? Yeah. How long was the 7-year war, right? Yeah.
7
Okay.
years.
Oh, good guess. Okay, here again, it had its rings in it. It was designed for what? Transporting again. Okay? Because they're going to have to be moving this thing around. And so it was right in the design. God had that all planned out. Okay. Again, it was had a lot of gold in it, didn't it? Now this table sat where? In the holy place, I believe. Yep. So it was available for a few more people to see and remembrance. And people knew what was there. Okay. Any other questions on the table? Okay. What would we relate the table to today?
Altar.
Pardon?
The altar.
No? Maybe? Yeah, the Lord's table, because they had on it what? There was a bowl on there, and then what was in the bowl? What would they put in the bowl? Did it say here? It didn't say what they put in it, did it? Just this is part of the making of it. The vessel, pure gold that were in the table, its plates and dishes and incense, and its bowl of, which pour drink offerings. Okay, drink offering. So you have unleavened bread and a drink offering. So that's very similar to what? What we do when the remembrance. This was in remembrance of what? Their Exodus, the Passover. Okay? We partake of the Lord's Supper and to remember what? The Lord. The Lord, the sacrifice that he made, his body, the blood that he shed. Okay, there's a lot of similarities there. Okay, we've seen a lot of similarities in the Bible, haven't we? We talked about Noah and the ark that saved him from the water. Yeah, water has a big play in a lot of things throughout the Bible, doesn't it? Okay.
I would like to been a construction cleanup crew guy when all that gold's getting driven.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Any other questions about the table? Comments? Making of the lampstand, verses 17 through 24.
They made the lampstand of pure gold and hammered it out, base and shaft. Its flower-like cups, buds, and blossoms were of one piece with it. 6 branches extended from the sides of the lampstand, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. 3 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms were on one branch, 3 on the next branch, and the same for all 6 branches extending from the lampstand. And on the lampstand were 4 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms. 1 bud was under the first pair of branches extending from the lampstand, a 2nd bud under the 2nd pair, and a 3rd bud under the 3rd pair, 6 branches in all. The buds and the branches were all of one piece with the lampstand, hammered out of pure gold. They made it 7 lamps, as well as its wick trimmers and trays of pure gold. They made the lampstand and all the accessories from 1 talent of pure gold.
Very good. It was an actual piece of art, wasn't it? The lampstand. 1 piece of pure gold, 1 talent. What did we say a talent was in today's value? I had mentioned that before. I'm trying to find the page that I had that on. It's been back. We already talked about it once.
37.24, is that what it is?
Yeah. 11, a little over $11 million for 1 talent. Okay? So that lampstand today would be worth that, just in its gold value. There'd be an awful lot of historical value in that one there. I don't think that thing is in existence around, is it? It hasn't been preserved. Have you heard anything about the lampstand? Do they still have the lampstand? The original?
Original?
Yeah. Probably been confiscated by somebody with the value it had in it. Okay.
The Romans torched it all, didn't they?
Pardon?
Didn't the Romans torch it all in 70 AD around Solomon's temple and
Yep, that could have been. If not, they would have.
everything that was destroyed?
Yep, that would have been a good time for it to disappear, wouldn't it? One way or another. Kind of like how Moses and God made the calf disappear, right? That was a lesson. Okay, what did this lampstand, what did it represent? Again.
I read one commentary said that it represented the eyes of the Lord and his presence and seeing everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true, but that's one book said.
I'm trying to think here, I didn't research this, but I'm trying to think the relationship between the lampstand and then when people had their Sabbath, they had their candles, right? Menorah. Is there a relationship between the two?
I think the menorah later on, when there was a battle between Romans and what was the name of that family? Maccabees. Yeah. They the lampstand they used at that time stayed lit for 8 days, and it was a miracle. They believed it was a miracle. So the menorah changed from the time of Jesus to the one you're talking about here in the
Okay.
tabernacle.
I always thought of the menorah kind of being the home version of the lampstand.
Yeah, it was.
representing a lot of the same thing. Yeah.
Had, I think, 7 or 8 candles on
I
the
think,
menorah.
yeah, for some reason I was thinking 7, but
Might be 7.
we'll probably find that out a little later. Doesn't come to my head real quick there. Anything else on the lampstand? People remember from their past studies? Nobody took any college classes strictly on the lampstand?
One of the things that amazed me was that, and I think it's revealed in the text, is that the lampstand was hammered out of pure gold instead of being plated with gold.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it must have been heavy.
Well, a talent of gold.
75 pounds.
Yeah, there was a weight, I think, to that too. I must not have put that down.
75 pounds.
75 pounds? Okay. Yeah, that's, one person could carry it.
Not all day long.
But not all day long. That's gets to be kind of heavy, you know. We've carried some 50-pound bags of 50 and 80-pound bags of mortar or cement. That's about, I can't even carry that anymore. I shouldn't carry that anymore. Let's put it that way. Okay, let me move back forward here. I keep flipping pages. Where did we go? I'm lost. Okay. Put my finger there. Making the altar of incense. Verses 25 through 29. David's got it.
Made the altar of incense out of acacia wood. It was square, 18 inches long and 18 inches wide. It was 36 inches high. Its horns were of one piece. He overlaid it, its top, all around its sides and its horns with pure gold. Then he made a gold molding all around it. He made 2 gold rings for it under the molding on 2 of its sides. He put these on opposite sides of it to be holders for the poles to carry it with. He made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with gold. He also made the holy anointing oil and the pure, fragrant, and expertly blended incense.
Okay. Does anybody have a little bit of history of what incense had to do with their worship to God? Comments?
It's the same thing as our singing and worship. It goes up as a sweet incense to God.
I think there's a relationship there, definitely.
I know in Revelation where the elders and the 4 living creatures are holding these golden bowls full of incense, which John says are the prayers of God's people. So it could be the same idea, you know, the prayers are going up to the nostrils of God, and but I don't know if that for sure.
What about the psychological effect of smelling things? Do you ever smell something and you say, that reminds me of my grandmother's house? Okay? We have some particular smells. We have this incense that they use, and they smell that incense. What's the inference then? You think of what? You think of God. Okay? It's interesting how God uses the senses that we have, even in his worship, in his remembrance. Okay, we see things or we hear different things, it reminds us of something, but smell is an interesting one that we kind of overlook a lot. Because normally we think of smell as I either like it or I don't like it when you're thinking of food or whatever. Or if it smells bad, you know, something smells bad, I'm not going there, you know. But when something smells good and you relate it to something, like a worship to God, then all it takes is a little bit of that smell and you're kind of in the mood. You know, they do that a lot with perfumes, right? I mean, they're supposed to make you feel good, make you feel in the mood, whatever mood you want to get in, okay? Interesting point there, okay? Again, we'll get down to all the regulations with the priests when they use these, and we've all seen movies where they're, you know, the priests are going ahead with the incense going, so that they're swinging it a bit, so it does what? It gets out a little bit, so everybody can smell it. Okay. Oh, we're in the presence of the Lord. You know, kind of announcing it by the incense. Okay. We don't have to say anything. Maybe we could do that here instead of ringing a bell. No, it's not time yet.
Yeah. You're trying to.
Then we just little injections come out with incense of some type, and class is over. You'll be out of a job, wouldn't you? Okay. But it's another article that's in the tabernacle. Okay, it had its reasons, and very valuable, and very well crafted. Okay, our next item, chapter 38, 1 through 7. This would be the Ark of the Burnt Offering. Chapter 38, 1 through 7.
He made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length, and 5 cubits its breadth. It was square, and 3 cubits was its height. He made horns for it on its 4 corners. Its horns were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with bronze. And he made all the utensils of the altar, the pots, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. He made all its utensils of bronze. And he made for the altar a grating, a network of bronze under its ledge extending halfway down. He cast 4 rings on the 4 corners of the bronze grating as holders for the poles. He made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. And he put the poles through the rings on the sides of the altar to carry it with them. He made it hollow with boards.
Okay. Virtually everything in here has acacia wood in it, right? You read that, okay? When they were building the tabernacle itself, the poles were acacia wood, inlaid, or not inlaid, but covered with gold. Okay, and then the curtains were hung from that for the perimeter of the tabernacle. Was acacia wood readily available there?
Yeah.
It seemed like it would be, but then I was reading someplace too that they brought that with them, which seems kind of odd. I'm trying to visualize. You know, I know acacia wood is a very good quality wood. I don't know, most of it nowadays it says comes from the Far East, but we might relate it to something like a teak or some of our high quality woods to do woodworking with.
The acacia tree is the only tree that would live in the desert.
Okay, so that would make it more available. It was interesting in the research, they didn't say anything about Middle East area, you know, as far as the acacia wood. So I didn't look at another article on that, but it was interesting how it's one of those, just because you see it on the line, it doesn't mean it's true, right? Got to do enough research to figure out exactly on that. But they had that. They could work with it. You know, God has a way of, when He wants something done, it was something that's readily available, isn't it? You know, we talk about that with our Lord's Supper, that bread and wine were things that were very easily to get a hold of. So it made it very hard to have an excuse of, well, I didn't have the materials for it. We couldn't do it. Okay. When they were offering up Isaac, and God stopped him from killing him, what was readily available? A ram was what? Caught in the bushes there. Okay, so they had the sacrifice. God prepares, or God makes ready for us. So he doesn't put a lot of things as a hindrance, but he does want us to follow through with what? His commands. Okay. Too often we make excuses. Well, I can't really do that very well, you know. Or I've heard people say, you know, God wouldn't require that. He's a loving God, you know. He wouldn't make it that hard on you. Well, he's a loving God, but he's also said he was what? A jealous God. So he wants people to follow him. And he'll take good care of them if you follow him. He'll take good care of us. Okay. The altar of burnt offerings. What metals were used in it? Bronze. Now we're not using gold now. Why do you think you used bronze? Pardon? No, they didn't run out of gold. Oh, yeah, gold might melt too easy. Okay. I don't know if that's, I'm sure that's a part of it right there, but the other part is,
Cost more.
well, they weren't worried about cost, I don't think. They weren't worried about cost.
Lesser importance. It's most important thing is God. Anything after that, of course, if you made it of gold, then it would put it about the level as Christ was.
Mm-hmm.
Bulls and goats and Christ.
Exactly.
I think that's separated from there.
When you're having an altar, what's the most important thing in the process? The sacrifice, isn't it? The sacrifice is what's important. Okay? I mean, we talk about the cross, but the cross isn't special. It's the person who died on the cross that makes it special. Okay? In this particular case, this is where they were burning their burnt offerings, right? And the important part of that is the fact that you're making this offering. And these offerings were what? We talked about this, and I think they talked about in the video. Were made with animals that were these people's livelihood too, right? They took the best, so you're not going to get the top dollar out of lesser product, right? Because they're taking their one that's the best, and that's the one that they give to the Lord. Okay. Now you do this for quite some period of time. In this case, it might be, you know, well, this is starting now, and they're going to be 40 years in the wilderness, and then on from there. But it won't take but a few months of that, and you start getting what? In the habit, and it's part of your lifestyle and part of your demeanor that you're going to give the best to God. You get away from the thinking that, oh, what I could have done with that, what that could have done for me, okay? And then you start thinking, giving it to God. And today we think about what? Following after Christ's example of serving others. Okay, serving others is the best way we can serve God, is it not? A whole variety of ways to serve people, you know, other than teaching the gospel, helping them out with their physical needs, their spiritual needs, being a friend. Everybody has their particular problems. And so those of us that have any abilities to help other people with a particular problem, whether it be a mental condition or whether it be a physical condition, some family problem, you know, we all have our different problems, and there's some of us that have more experience in those than others that can really help. And the idea of being able to support our brothers and sisters to help us through trouble times, through our low times, and keep focused on God. Okay, and we do that by serving others. You know, the best friend is a Christian friend. Understands, but we all have the same goal, and that's the key thing. We all have the same goal. So we want to get over what problems we have that we have to get through in our lives, so that we can do what? we can concentrate on other people's problems, particularly the spiritual problems. But you get to people with their spiritual problems by what? Helping them with their physical problems. Okay? Jesus fed people. It got their attention pretty good. Okay? And it gave them more time to teach them. Okay? And he showed by example. The bronze basin, verse 8. And he made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the mirrors of the ministering women and ministering to the entrance of the tent of meetings. What was the bronze basin used for? Cleansing, yep. A ceremonial cleansing, physical cleansing, but probably more ceremonial. Than they were probably pretty clean when they got there. But again, an outward sign of purifying yourself, cleaning yourself before what? You draw closer to God. Okay. A lot of times we talk about baptism as being an outward sign to other people that we've committed to following Christ, and an outward sign to other people that, you know, we understand that we're sinful and that we want to be forgiven of those sins, and the waters of baptism forgive us of those sins. Okay. Any more comments on the bronze basin? Okay, we have making the court, verse 9 through 20. Raise your hand. Got it. Right behind you there.
And he made the court. For the south side, the hangings of the court were of fine twined linen, 100 cubits. Their 20 pillars and their 20 bases were of bronze. But the hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. And for the north side there were hangings of 100 cubits. Their 20 pillars, their 20 bases were made of bronze. But the hooks of the pillars and the fillets were of silver. And for the west side were hangings of 50 cubits, their 10 pillars and their 10 bases. The hooks of the pillars and the fillets were of silver. And for the front to the east, 50 cubits. The hangings for one side of the gate were 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and their 3 bases. How far did you say to go?
20.
20. And so for the other side, on both sides of the gate, were court hangings of 15 cubits, with 3 pillars and their 3 bases. All the hangings around the court were of fine twined linen, and the bases for the pillars were of bronze. But the hooks of the pillars and their fillets were of silver. The overlaying of their capitals was also of silver, and all the pillars of the court were filleted with silver. And the screen for the gate of the court was embroidered with needlework in blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen. It was 20 cubits long and 5 cubits high in its breadth, corresponding to the hangings of the court. And their pillars were 4 in number. Their 4 bases were of bronze, their hooks of silver, and the overlaying of their capitals and their fillets of silver. And all the pegs for the tabernacle and for the court all around were made of bronze. I don't know if I was saying that. Fillet, is it fillets? That word?
I believe that's the word I saw here. Let me think.
I don't know what is a fillet.
A fillet? Well, what is a fillet on a fish? Just a small slither? Kind of a slither through that? Silver. We have bronze and silver here, don't we? So what is the court area? Especially those of you that have been in a tabernacle or a replica of the temple. Pardon?
It's the outside area.
Outside of the holy place and most holy place. Okay? Who could go into the courts? The priest? Any priest. right? Basically any priest could go into the court. Okay, when you got into the temple, their court area were men only, right? I don't know if that was priests at that particular point, were the only ones that could go in there in the temple. We'll get to that a few down the road a ways. Interesting history here of how, how this is just really interesting. So here we have not as good a quality, because you're getting a little farther away from God himself, so to speak, because God is presenting himself as being in a physical place, isn't he? Okay. It's a little different thinking the way we think today. I mean, we do think a lot physically, because at my time, a lot of people would think, well, God is more at the church building than anywhere else. Well, he's here when we're here. Okay. What did the New Testament say about where God would be? Pardon? Yeah. So, because God's with it, actually, if we're by ourselves, God's there. But the idea in the presence in a form of worship, I think, is what they're talking about more. So it isn't the place, it's the assembly. And that's what the church is it not? The assembly of believers. So it doesn't matter where we meet. We've met several times out there in that, what do you want to call that? Barn. Call it a barn, I guess, but not doesn't have any sides to it. But we met out there, which was exciting in the fact that we were, had the land here, we hadn't built the building, and then when we're starting the building, we're still meeting out there a little bit once in a while, get us going with our new location. Okay? And you can imagine what the children of Israel were like. Here's the construction of this ark is going on. Now, we talked a little bit about how long it took to build the ark. Does somebody remember?
Which one, Noah's?
Pardon?
Noah's Ark?
Did I say ark? I probably did I? The tabernacle. Okay. I've misspoke a couple times. And of course, Robert's not here. I gave it away. It doesn't actually tell you how long, other than have to do a little calculating based on the moons. So basically, it was basically a year since they left Egypt. And if you work backwards on that, it's about 3 months before God gave them the order to build the ark, or the tabernacle. Excuse me. We did the ark already. And, we were talking about the Ark of the Covenant, but maybe that's what I kept coming in. And so it took a little while to give them all the instructions. But one section I read, it says, from conception and God introducing the idea of building the tabernacle to completion was 9 months. Which I thought was real interesting. It's a coincidence whether God thought about it that way, because it takes 9 months what? For humans to have a baby, okay, and develop there. And then we're moving from outside of the camp to the center of the camp. Okay, so the focus of God is right there in the center of everybody. Okay, so that people are feeling it. God's closer to them. God's closer to them. And he's accepting me more. Okay? Where the other way around is what? We're the ones that need to accept him. The way we understand that he's still always there and willing. Now, it did explain how he was kind of upset at them. And Moses had to remind him, this is your chosen people here. Giving God a pep talk. It seemed like it was, didn't it? And as many times as Moses needed confidence, there's times when he said, he's probably thinking, all of this you're having me do is for naught if you give up now. These are your chosen people. We got to make this work, And there were sections in there that seemed like that's the way it was. God gets upset once in a while, doesn't he? I mean, he got upset back in Noah's time, and nobody talked him out of that. Okay? And so, yeah. Any other comments about the tabernacle?
Going back to the lampstand, it was fashioned as a tree, and the branches. The reason they had almond flowers is because the almond tree is the first tree to blossom and then give fruit. Okay, so then later, that's why you see Paul, I think it's Corinthians, where he says he calls Jesus the first fruit because Jesus is the first to rise from the dead to everlasting life.
Okay. See how things fit together. You know, you can't, you know, a lot of people say, they look back at the Old Testament and think, you know, it's a good history lesson and all, but, you know, they emphasize so much on the New Testament. And as you can see here, learning this stuff and understanding it, what God wanted to do with the people, what the people had to do, and seeing the relationship now, that looking back is a lot different than looking forward, okay? You can see how it fits in, how God is really working with the people, but has to go through these stages to get to what we have today. You know, how many times have so people talk about, well, why did they have Christ come a lot earlier and just do it that way? You know, why did he have to go through all this? Well, you kind of understand. You know, the problem is what? Man. Yep. The problem is us. And anytime we get down to anything, the problem is us. Okay? And our dedication and our belief that God's going to do what he said. And when that finally sticks in, it makes a world of difference. And we notice that more, those that have been involved with the Lord for quite a few years, you know, hopefully we start to mature a little bit and we really understand that God knows what he's talking about. So we can look at the scriptures to make the relationships and say, okay, this is what I need to do, and do it right. So we'll be pleased in God's sight.
Jeff, I need to amend my earlier announcement. I may have accidentally indicated that the West Broward Youth Group is coming this weekend. It's not. It's the following weekend. So the Saturday night, the 14th, is when some of them need a place to sleep. The 14th, not this weekend.
Okay. Well, let's bow in prayer. Lord, again, we're grateful for this time when we can come together and study your word, understanding a little bit better your relationship with us and with the children of Israel, and drawing to the point when Christ came and was the supreme sacrifice for all of us. And we're thankful for that, Lord, and thankful for the ability that we can talk to you through your Son, and that Jesus has all power on heaven and earth. And we're grateful for that. We're grateful for the love that you show to us. Through Christ we pray. Amen.